All right, folks, for those of you listening at home, we're going to give just 2 minutes for the city manager to get in his position and for our missing commissioners to take the dais. And then we're going to get started. We could just go together. Are we live yet? No? Now we are live? All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and call this emergency meeting to order. We have one item on the agenda for this impromptu meeting, and it is to discuss the hurricane that is imminent and to hear what plans we have made in preparation. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I guess everyone kind of knows, it's now Hurricane Dorian, is in the Atlantic. It's southeast of us. It's still a couple days out, but the projected paths have it coming, hitting the eastern coast of Florida. As of the 5 o'clock update, it had it reaching the eastern coast of Florida. The eye of the storm coming in sometime between Sunday night, Monday morning. Tropical force winds would be preceding that, so probably Sunday noon sometime the eastern coast would start seeing tropical force winds. I guess the next slide shows more of a timeline of when it's expected. That cone is the probability of where it could hit. So we tend to look at the center of the cone and those dots and say what's going to hit in the Cape Canaveral area, but really, what the folks that are in emergency management, they're really looking at the entire run from Miami up to southeast Georgia. It could be any of those places. It gets updated about every 4 to 6 hours. We tend to check out the updates every 4 to 6 hours just to keep on track. The 5 o'clock track has it going a little more south. Earlier in the day it was more north of Cape Canaveral. Currently the eye is going south of Cape Canaveral. So we'll continue to monitor it as staff. We've been doing prep for all of this week for the most part. Tomorrow morning after the update, we will finalize things like topping off our fuel tanks, lining up mutual aid crews to come in and assist us. The wind projections are 115 miles per hour at landfall, and when it gets to the middle of the state, still 100 miles an hour. If it followed the path that is shown right there, 100 miles an hour in Orlando, Florida, would be a significant impact to Newberry. It'd be worse than any of the storms we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years. It'd be reminiscent of 2004 when Charlie and Francis and Jean and Isaac all came through. We would have significant tree damage, significant power outages. So we're taking it very seriously. We anticipate completing our citywide prep tomorrow before we go home. We've asked all of our staff to make sure they've got their home secured, because those folks that are field personnel or customer service personnel are expected to report to work as soon as winds subside. And if you've got problems at home, you need to let us know when you get here, and we'll try to assist you in getting folks to help you with the home, but we're going to need you here at work. If you have parents or children that need to be cared for, we'll ask that they become evacuated, move somewhere safe, so that again our folks can come to work. We had contact with EOC today. Their first briefing on this is tomorrow after lunch, which is a little late in the game for us. We would have anticipated something today to have discussions with them. We did speak about opening Easton. I guess they contacted Travis. We started having preliminary dialogue. Easton typically is their first shelter to want to open because it doesn't dual as a school, and they know that if they try to open and close it, they don't have to compete with school schedules. So we anticipate that Easton will be open so long as the track remains as it shows on this screen.
Mike, as soon as you have the meeting with them, will you have our social media announce things like sandbags, shelters, all that
Absolutely.
kind of stuff? Okay.
Absolutely. At this stage, we haven't been apprised of potential rain impacts. We know that with every hurricane we would expect significant rainfall, but sometimes it's 6 inches of rain, sometimes it's 18 inches of rain. We don't have any of that information and won't until tomorrow's meeting. That's at 1 o'clock. We have a meeting also at 3, a teleconference with Duke Energy, who is being much more proactive this year about planning for communications as relates to their transmission. If you'll remember, our electric system is fed off a Duke transmission system, and in the past, Duke has been criticized about their communication with other utilities that connect with them. So they are much more proactive this year. They've sent out tons of emails. And we have a teleconference tomorrow at 3, so that we can become apprised of what their plans are for the storm. So we'll know. We're watching it. We'll know more tomorrow. About 30 minutes ago, Governor DeSantis declared a state of emergency in the state of Florida. I believe that's statewide. Correct, Dallas, or not?
It is in half of the counties.
Half of the counties in Florida. I assume Alachua County? Not Alachua County yet. All right, so, and we are just pursuant to our policies, proposed a resolution where the commission will go ahead and declare a state of emergency. That allows us a little more latitude in how we prep in terms of suspending certain purchasing policies and granting certain authorities. So with an opportunity to get with the City Commission and have an emergency meeting, give you a briefing, and then propose adoption of a resolution to declare a state of emergency. That's what's on the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Okay, I want to thank staff for thinking of the budget workshop, having the foresight to call this so we don't have to get everybody back here later on in the week. Does staff have anything more to report on the preparations before we take questions?
No, sir. We'd be happy to answer any more questions. I'll just tell you that we have every department has kind of a list of things that we go through. Primarily that goes to our field staff and facility staff, but they started working on this probably Monday afternoon sometime. I think we're well through. I heard that we're topping off all the fuel tanks today, and that we'll get refilled tomorrow sometime during the day, so that if we have a storm event over the weekend, we will be fully fueled up and ready to go, which is one of our biggest issues once you have a catastrophic storm event and you're a small organization like the city of Newberry is. And when I say small, that's relative to Alachua County, Gainesville, and other more urbanized areas. It's hard to get fuel, so being topped off at the beginning will really help us. For running our wastewater generators, those generators would need to be fueled every 18 hours to 24 hours, so getting fuel deliveries in so that we can continue to have sewage moving and not on the ground is critical. Those are the types of things that Jamie's working on top of. Dallas also mentioned it's more of a customer service thing, that we have an emergency notification. If any customers want to get blast correspondence through emails or things like that, he's going to explain here in just 1 second how to get signed up for that. When we have information to push out, anybody on our emergency notification list will receive correspondence from us updating them on the latest of the storms.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. Just wanted to walk through how residents can sign up for emergency notifications. As the manager said, if you're in our utility district and we have your correct information, you're automatically signed up, but it never hurts to sign up a second time. So from our city's website at ci.newberry.fl.us, if you go to the How Do I tab, from this tab you can report an outage if and when we have power outages. This would be the proper place to report an outage. You can also sign up for emergency notifications. If you click on that tab, it'll take you to another website, and down here at the bottom where the web link is, if you click on Smart Notice, it'll take you to our emergency notification sign-in. You can create an account there. You can have multiple people on your account. It'll geolocate your address when you put it in. So if we have an emergency notice that needs to go out to the south side of town, say there's a boil water notice, and you live on the north side of town, you won't get that notice. So you only get the notices that are applicable to you. Typically in storm events, we send all notices to all residents of the city. Like I said, you can create an account with your Facebook or with an email address and keep your information up to date. You can choose to get weather emergency notices issued by the National Weather Service to this service, as well as notices that the city itself puts out relating to emergency events. And you can get those emailed to you and texted to you, or you can receive a phone call. And then we also have a link to it on our city's Facebook page. Again, there's the outage reporting link here. And then at the very top of our Facebook page, there's the outage reporter. There is a link, pinned post here that you can click on, and it'll take you to that same page on our website. We will start messaging on our Facebook about how to sign up for that, as well as more information about the storm and the storm preparations the city's undertaking. And as well as we'll have our outage phone numbers and our call center phone numbers posted.
And folks, this is a surefire way to make sure that you get contacted. Social media, contacting a commissioner or myself on social media. It may work, it may not work. It may work 4 or 5 hours when one of us has the chance to check our social media accounts. If the power is out, we may not be able to check our social media accounts. So signing up this way, make sure you get noticed directly when everybody else gets noticed. And it's much more effective than posting on the forum that you're out of power or those kinds of things. Does that conclude staff's preparation remarks?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I have a question too, but open the floor to the commission. Anybody have any questions about the storm, our level of preparedness? While you're pondering, where are we on the satellite phones, our ability for our staff to stay in communication? I know we had those phones, but the phones we had were tied into the internet, and when the internet went down, they didn't work. Have we corrected that? We were able to?
Mr. Mayor, locally we have our radio system. The city is a member of the GETS program, which is, I want to say, the Governmental Emergency Telecommunication System. It's a program that is sponsored through the Department of Homeland Security, where certain members of the management team's phones are listed as priority cell phone communications. So in an emergency, those phones are moved to the top of the list in terms of communications. So if there is any sort of signal, 1 bar, anything, those phones get priority over all other communications. We also have that with our internet services on our phones and our mobile hotspots.
Okay.
Unless the cell phone towers themselves go down, we should be good.
Okay. And how are our interlocal agreements with everyone around us? Are those intact, including the co-ops?
Mr. Mayor, they are. They're essentially the same place they were the last couple of years. It's the same agreements, the same things are in place. I'd say that the logistics, the day-to-day logistics of how we go about making that happen are probably a little smoother. We've now helped the co-ops out on, I think, on 3 different occasions. It's usually us helping the co-ops. Just be the nature of our system, we're pretty compact. We're probably going to be up before a Clay or a Central Florida. I think that it's important for customers to recognize that when we are asked to help Clay Electric, we don't have the latitude of saying we're only going to help you in our city limits or on these certain things. The ask for them to consider that is just too overwhelming for them. They have project managers that can't think about corporate boundaries. They have the same priority schedule we do, and they're going to restore their electric systems in the same priority. Now, I know that we'd be in essentially the same regions. You know, but last time one of the times we helped Clay Electric, we were up in Bland area along the Santa Fe River. Same thing with Central Florida. We may be in the suburbs of Newberry. It's funny to say suburbs of Newberry, but just outside of Newberry, or we may be somewhere in Levy or Gilchrist County if we're helping them. I always caution residents, though, that the first day or first day and a half of the storm event, those utilities aren't well organized, and none of us are well organized enough to have well coordination with our neighbors. You know, right? It's an assessment phase. It's trying to get your priority stuff on. Usually, it takes a day or two to kind of get your head above water. And you know, I know that I personally reached out to Clay Electric, and it takes maybe 36 hours before they're even able to get back to me. It's consistent, and I get it. it makes sense to me. I just want to make sure our customers understand, or our residents understand, that it takes 24 to 48 hours to get your head above water, no matter how well prepared you are, how many storm events you've been through. And it's usually that third day to fifth day that we get pretty well oiled and can handle those types of requests.
Okay. I think that does it for me. Did anybody else have any questions about hurricane preparedness? Does the public have any questions about hurricane preparedness, what you should do, how you should get contacted, what you should prepare for, and how long you should prepare for it?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple comments. If the wind projections indicate that winds are going to exceed hurricane force winds in Newberry, 75-mile-an-hour winds, my recommendation is to evacuate. People never want to do that. Or there's a certain element of people that always feel like, I'm just going to ride it out. And we can go to Mexico Beach and talk to a lot of people that thought they were going to ride it out. You just never know. And the best thing to do is, if you're not required to be there for work and you have enough opportunity to know if the winds are going to exceed 75 miles an hour, you need to leave. It's just unsafe. Trees fall, and you're just putting your family at risk. So we strongly encourage folks to not try to ride it out because of the unknown risk associated with these high wind events.
Before you move on to your other comment, I want to say, when you make that decision to ride it out, you're not only putting your family at risk, you're putting our first responders at risk, because you're going to call for help, and then those folks are going to try to get to you as soon as they safely can get to you. So I would echo the manager's comments, and I would also say we're lucky to live here in Newberry, because we have Easton has not been designated a shelter yet, but it has been in the past 2 or 3 years. We would expect it to be. Oak View Middle School is a designated shelter, so you don't have to drive. Hasn't been designated yet, but it has been in years past. So there's opportunities for you to go to a shelter without having to drive an hour or 2 hours to get there to it. Your other comment, Mr. Manager, was that it?
Mr. Mayor, also, when a hurricane winds come in, we all know they come in bands. So there's the temptation for us to go out and work between bands, which typically does nothing more than tire our staff out, because whatever they fix during the lull gets damaged right back again afterwards. And so they stayed up all night watching a band come through for 2 hours, and then they'll go spend an hour working and then do it all over again. And so we ask our crews not to do that, to just wait till the winds have subsided and are going to stay subsided, and let's put it up one time with well-rested crews. There's at least one time in Newberry's history where, by the time we waited the storm out, they were just about too tired to go work at all. And so we're trying to learn from those lessons. We want to make sure that we're really good at restoration. And so if the storm is not passed, the expectation, we're going to go save a life on the public safety side, but in terms of restoration of facilities, we're going to wait for the storm to pass before we get out and begin restoring facilities.
Okay. Any further comments? Mr. Attorney, will you read the resolution then?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 2019-34, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, declaring a local state of emergency for the City of Newberry pursuant to Section 252.38, subparagraph 2 of the Florida statutes, due to the threat of Tropical Storm Dorian, providing for a waiver of procedures and formalities, delegating the authority, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2019-34 as read by title only.
And Mr. Attorney, it's not stated directly, but we're delegating authority to the city manager in this resolution to act. Do we need to read that into the motion?
No.
No? Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman? A second from Commissioner Hersom. Any questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Does the public have any questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I'm going to call this emergency meeting adjourned and immediately open up our regularly scheduled workshop, and tell them I said hello.
I will do that.